Hello fellow Gizmos, my name is Gizmo21. I'll be honest, when this game was first suggested to me by a handsome devil of a viewer, I was a little skeptical. I looked at some of the screenshots for the game itself, and seen that at first glance it looked like some sort of top-down shooter. Not that I'm necessarily against top-down games, but I'm not well versed in those games. It's not really a top-down shooter, it's a top-down turn-based roguelike, all of which are extremely out of my jurisdiction. So fair warning, this is my first game of that type. So this review is coming from the perspective of someone who really hasn't played many of these types of games. With that being said, let's get into the review proper, Jupiter Hell. In Jupiter Hell, you play as a man by the name of Mark Taggart, which I actually found out his name on accident when I forgot to fill out the name box at the beginning. Anyway, he can either be a scout, marine, or technician. The scout is more stealth-based. The technicians are, quote, masters of equipment and tinkering. And the marine, which is the one I decided to go with my runs of the game, and what all of the gameplay that you're seeing is. He's pretty much just sort of this tankish character. Some of the environments that Jupiter Hell takes you through, that I saw anyway, are pretty neat, but where the game really shines is in its combat. The combat is turn-based in a similar way to the older Fallout games. I'm actually rather new to turn-based games as well. I've played some of the Final Fantasy games, I've played Persona 4 and 5, and the older Fallout games. You can either purposely target an enemy or explosive barrels, or you can just let the game do it for you and it kind of locks onto them, which I think is pretty cool. There are some weapons that you need to manually reload, and some that have clips, which I think is a kind of neat sort of deal, rather than reloading it and it does each bullet for you. Instead, you have to press the reload button every single bullet, which is pretty cool. You can take cover, and there's chances that your enemies will hit you and won't hit you, and if those chances are low, well then they won't hit you. If they're high, then they will hit you. You also have this sort of like adrenaline fury mode that is pretty neat. It pretty much just raises your damage output. And also, for the most part in this game, actually for literally the entire game, you're going to be just using the arrow keys on your keyboard and just the keyboard. You do not need a mouse at all. Or you can use a gamepad. As far as weaponry, you've got a 12-gauge shotgun which deals spread damage as a shotgun should, a 9mm pistol, a 44 revolver, a 44 deagle, a 9mm SMG, and a assault rifle, which all have upgrades and mods. There's also sort of a skill tree system, again sort of in the same fashion as the Fallout games. In Jupiter Hell, you can really tell that there's a lot of love put into this game, and there's a lot of personality in it as well. Jupiter Hell was developed by Chaos Forge and published by Hyperstrange. And honestly, Chaos Forge has a few games that I do want to check out and maybe review on this channel later. They're also making a brand new Postal game called Postal Brain Damage. And honestly, it's pretty good to see a new Postal game, which you can bet I will be reviewing when that game comes out, as well as all the other Postal games. Bizarrely enough, and maybe I'm incredibly out of touch, but when you get into the meat of the combat, it actually begins feeling like the original Doom games. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. The metal soundtrack does help with that. In fact, it's even structured similarly to the original Doom games. There's not necessarily a whole lot of a story, there's just fucking shit up, which, in my opinion, is pretty great. What story is in Jupiter Hell, though, you typically get from these things that can also be used to shut down and activate certain things if you have the right amount of multi-tools, which, again, I guess you could say are sort of this game's version of bobby pins. I do recommend Jupiter Hell, whether you're a veteran with these types of games or you just want to get into them. Honestly, this game can be addictive, and its combat is pretty damn satisfying. Bizarrely enough, I actually think this game would really benefit from a Switch port. I'm not really sure why, but I have this whole list of games that would really benefit from a Switch port. Anyway, I suppose if I had one negative thing to say about this game, is I kind of wish it didn't have a permadeath system. When you die, you get sent back to the very beginning of the game, and I wish it was just an option to turn that shit off. But to my knowledge, it isn't. Either way, just because I'm a bitch baby about that doesn't mean that everyone will. So I do recommend you try it out for yourself, and let me know what you think in the comments down below. With all that being said, like, subscribe, comment, share with your pals, and help people become fellow gizmos today, and thank you guys so much for watching this video.